Today, we're going to talk about demand, and we're going to be talking about Chapter 4, Sections 4.1 and 4.2. So, our essential question for 4.1 is what is the law of demand and how is it related to marginal utility? So, a little things to help you think about with demand. In the summer of 2012, the American Automobile Association announced that gasoline prices in California had reached the all time high of $4.67 per gallon. And a spokesperson at the time for the gasoline industry said that the reason this was happening is there were a whole bunch of things affecting the supply side, including unexpected problems at some refinery plants that were causing a cutback in production. And demand was also at a high. So, regardless of all the reasons, it was expected that people living in California would respond to the higher prices by limiting how much they were driving. Therefore, what we would see is a reduce in demand for gasoline because people would not want to afford such high prices. Currently, right now, we're seeing the opposite. Gas prices are actually pretty low. And one of the reasons why is with the quarantine and shelter in place orders, people are not driving like they used to. So now you're starting to see a drop in price to help encourage people to fill up. Some other reasons also are there's an oversupply of gasoline in the market and actually worldwide. And so because there's such a oversupply, people are seeing those prices translated because the producers of oil need to sell it and get rid of it. The definition of demand is the desire, ability, and willingness to buy a product. So you may desire something and you might have the ability to buy it and you might be willing. And if you have all three of those, you're going to buy something really cool. So let's just say Nintendo Switches are out in the marketplace. You have the desire, but you don't have the ability. You don't have the $200 for the Switch Lite, and you don't have the $300 for the Switch itself. Until somebody gives you money or you have a job and you can earn enough money, then maybe you have all three to go buy that Switch. An individual demand curve illustrates how the quantity, which is the amount that a person will demand, varies depending on the price of a good or service. Economists analyze demand by listing prices and desired quantities in a demand schedule. So it's going to look like a table. So this is what demand schedules look like. You have the price on one side in one column and the quantity purchased in the other column. And then you're going to take those points, the price will be on your y-axis and the quantity purchased will be on your x-axis, and you can actually plot that out to make it into a graph. So when that demand data is graphed, it forms a demand curve with a downward slope. So it's an inverse relationship. You can see price, like I said, on the Y. The higher the price, the lower people will demand it. There's not going to be the same quantity demanded. And the lower the price, the more people are going to want it. Okay? So think about something you have been wanting to buy, keep it in your head. What was the price of it? And at what price would you be willing to buy that item? So, how high would the cost have to go before you would decide that it's not worth it to you? The law of demand states that the quantity demanded of a good or service varies inversely with its price. And you saw that with the slope. So, in other words, a more simple way is when the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down, and when the price drops, demand goes up. People like sales and they like things cheap, which is why places like Walmart do really well because we want cheap goods, or the dollar store, any of those places. The market demand curve is this curve that shows the quantities demanded by everyone who is interested in purchasing the product. It looks just like an individual demand curve, but is the sum of all the individual curves in the market. Now, there's this thing called marginal utility. Marginal utility is the extra usefulness or satisfaction somebody receives from getting or using one more unit of a product. So let's just say I love chocolate. Well, we weren't going to say that. I really do love chocolate. So I buy my first candy bar. I eat it. I'm like, oh, it's so good. I want another one. So I buy a second candy bar and I eat it. And then I still kind of have a craving, but by the time I eat my third candy bar, I'm kind of done. So as I keep eating more and more chocolate candy bars, the marginal utility for me diminishes. And that's what it states. The satisfaction we gain from buying the product lessens as we buy more of the product. And another example for you is you just finished running laps, you are tired and very thirsty. You buy a Gatorade at the vending machine or a Fanta, but Fanta really is less thirst quenching. Anyhow, that first Gatorade is absolutely amazing. It's like 100 degrees out. You just ran 4 laps around the track. That Gatorade is amazing. And you have more money. And so you're like, you know what? I'm still thirsty and I'm going to buy my another one. And you do. It's good, but not as amazing as the first. And you still buy another one because you're still feeling thirsty. You feel like you need to have some more electrolytes and sugar. And by the time you hit your fourth one, you feel kind of weird. So, for some unexplained reason, you are so full you would actually pay somebody to drink that Gatorade for you. You may be sick. You might pass out. You certainly do not appreciate Gatorade number 4. This is where you're experiencing your diminishing returns. So, a little bit of review, and then we're going to also do chapter 4, section 2. So, things that affect demand. So, the essential question here is what is the difference between a change in quantity demand and a change in demand? So, for example, the review part. So, here we're showing you that the higher the price is, so if something's $25, there's only going to be one thing demanded. But as the price drops down to like $5, you see 8 people who demand it. And this is the schedule here that they're going to help plot the points over here to help show you where the demand is going to be. Economists use the term utility to describe the amount of usefulness or satisfaction somebody gets from amount of the use of that product. Marginal utility is the extra part of satisfaction or usefulness somebody gets from using a product that they buy. Then that diminishing marginal utility, remember, this is where the more you have of it, the less you want of it. And we gave you this chart here of these burgers showing you how, for just utility itself, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm really happy. I really love burger number 1. It's fantastic. And then you get to burger number 2, and you're like, well, it's still sort of satisfying, but not as much as it was the first one I had. And then by the time you get to that third burger, you're probably really wishing you hadn't done that at all. When you reach the point where marginal utility is less than the price, you will stop buying. I mean, if this is really true about Homer Simpson, which is not when it comes to him and donuts, he's going to say he stopped buying donuts and now he's ready for a nap. However, if you know Homer Simpson, he would probably never, ever stop eating donuts. So there are things that help change demand. And what we mean by this is the change in quantity demanded shows a change in the amount purchased. So when the quantity of demand is changing, it's actually going to change how much is going to be like purchased when there is a change in price. So this is important. When there's a change in price right here, it moves along the line. For example, when gasoline is, 5, 10, $15 a gallon, you're going to find yourself driving a whole lot less. But when that price drops to a really reasonable price like 250, people are going to start driving even more. So there's a shifting along the line here. And the best way to help explain that, the diminishing marginal utility tells us intuitively why demand curve is sloping downward. So there are some things that affect this. The income effect. If you have a job and you have to spend it on things like groceries and bills and all of this, consumers that have any leftover income are going to spend it on things. The more income you have, maybe the more you splurge on name brand items. However, what we're seeing right now with the quarantine and the coronavirus, we actually see people not wanting to spend as much money, especially if they've been laid off, because they don't know when they're going to see their next paycheck. And if they have to apply for unemployment, they're going to be very careful to make sure they pay their living expenses first before they go and buy anything frivolous. There's another thing called the substitution effect. The substitution effect is just that. It's where you can substitute one item for another based on price. So let's just say you are facing that unemployment. You have to be careful with how you spend your money. Maybe you stop buying name brand grocery products. So instead of getting Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, you're now going to buy the Safeway sugary, overloaded, coated flakes because it's cheaper. If you can save yourself a little bit of money, it'll go a lot longer and further for you. So you're substituting one thing for another because it's cheaper. These two things cause a change in demand. So a change in demand is when people buy different amounts of product at the same prices. And then there's a graph here that shows you this one actually means the line will shift entirely. So the first one shows change in price that we were talking about where it moves along the line. Now these things are going to actually make the line shift either left or right. If the line shifts to the left, it's a decrease in demand. If the line shifts to the right, it's an increase in demand. Things that do that. Change in income. So we talked about that a little bit more. The more money you have, the more you can afford products at every price, and you're going to be more willing to buy them. Consumer tastes. This is another one. So consumers are fickle. We like to change our minds a lot. We also are influenced by advertising, news reports, fashion trends. Think about all of those influencers on social media and the introduction of new products and things like that. Even changes in the season affect consumer demand. When it starts to get into the fall, you want to go buy cute winter clothes because you know you're going to be cold. Same thing in reverse. When it's springtime and it starts to warm up and it's beautiful outside, you start thinking about summer clothes. So it changes what you think about. Related products, this also can tie into substitutes and things like that. So if something suddenly becomes too expensive and you don't want to pay for that, you might go for the cheaper one. And as we were talking about, butter and margarine are substitutes. You can buy one for the other. Compliments. No, this is not the kind of compliment where, wow, you look really nice today. I really like your hairstyle. It's not that kind of compliment. Instead, this is items that are related. The use of one will increase the use of another. Printers and ink cartridges are complements. If you buy a printer, you might buy an extra ink cartridge just to have on hand in case it goes out. So if there's a sale on printers, people are more willing to buy ink cartridges at the regular price because it's a complement and you got a sale on the printer. Changes in expectations. People's expectations about the future can change demand. So if you know that Apple's going to be rolling out a brand new iPhone and your contract's expired, you might wait to trade in your iPhone until the new one rolls out. And then that way you know you can get a more expensive phone on contract for cheaper. Also, if they're suddenly saying we're going to have a huge rainstorm and your umbrella just broke, you might rush right out to go buy a new umbrella. With the coronavirus, we saw people suddenly stock up on toilet paper and paper towels. And now, even when you go into the stores, you still can't find them. How many people are in the market that demand it? The demand market curve changes whenever consumers enter or leave the market. iPhone does a really good job of trying to keep its brand loyalty and keep people buying it because they know that the more people they can get to buy iPhones, it means more profit for them and it looks good. So that's why they always try to update their phones with maybe one or two minor things, but it knows it's going to keep people coming back for more. So when we're talking about things like demand and stuff like that changing, what I mean by the line changing is, so let's go ahead and talk about the price of chocolate bars. Originally, chocolate bars, let's just say, are really expensive. So I'm going to put my price over here and my quantity demanded here. Sorry about the terrible writing. If chocolate bars are costing me $15, I'm not really going to buy it unless it's like a really special chocolate bar. Maybe then I'm going to buy one, right? But I'm only going to buy one. But if chocolate bars drop to 50 cents back in the old days. Suddenly, I'm willing to buy 10. I'll save them for a rainy day. Because remember, if I eat too many chocolate bars, I don't like them. That's my law of diminishing marginal utility. So this is a change in price. And all you see is my stuff moving right here along the line, okay? So this is a change in price. Wow, I write like my son. It's terrible. Okay. However, if we're going to talk about one of the actual changes in actual demand itself that's going to be showing how it moves along the whole thing, we're going to erase all of this. And that's where it's going to shift the entire line. Okay. So since it's getting closer and closer to summer, it's going to be time to buy some shorts, maybe a t-shirt or two. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say this is going to actually be, we're going to call it the summer clothes. And this one's going to make the entire line shift. So make sure you always are labeling graphs when you're drawing the graphs. You can just put P and Q, it's fine. And we're going to say this is my original demand for clothes. And now it's getting closer to summer. And suddenly I'm going to be like, I need some more shorts and everything like that. So we're going to see the entire line shift to the right. My demand increases, okay? We're going to call this D1 because it's my new demand line. And my old demand is D2. Or I'm sorry, it's just regular D, okay? Now, let's just say it's end of summer and I don't want those. I don't need summer clothes anymore. So what's going to happen to my demand for summer clothes? That's right. It's going to decrease. So you're going to see the line right here. And this is going to be my D1. Actually, I'm going to make this one D2 because it's my second line. And this stays D1. So it goes from here and I'm decreasing my demand because it's end of summer. I don't need them anymore. So I'm going to drop my demand. So the most important thing actually when you're talking about demand is to please just watch if it's a change in price or if it's actually a change in taste or compliments or expectations, any of those, because the price is along the line and the substitutes and all those other ones are shifts of the entire line itself. Those are probably like the trickiest things to deal with demand.